I think people make the idea of being authentic much more prettier than the actuality of what comes with being authentic. Because when I researched the definition of authentic, because I wanted to be precise, it's literally somebody's true self, somebody acting in their true, genuine way. The way authenticity presents is really dependent on the person themselves. And of course, that's kind of obvious. But when it comes to that, whether you have a more polarizing, more obscure, more of a weird, or of a crazy personality, sometimes your authentic self is not going to be embraced. If you have a good personality, one that's more rewarded in society, then it will be embraced. So being authentic, the journey to actually truly being authentic isn't as easy as just be yourself. It's not going to come with all of these magical and majestic things or like improve your life somehow. It may feel more liberating to yourself, but it's like you also have to think to yourself, what are the pros and cons? What will I miss out on if I choose to be authentic? Or what will I not receive? How will I feel if I don't choose to be authentic? I think if you've lived your life in a way where previously you didn't show up as your true self, and the people around you now have this idea of who you've made yourself out to be, then if all of a sudden you decide, okay, I'm gonna be my true self, etc., etc., there's gonna be somewhat of a reaction to that. And that reaction may be all peace and love, kumbaya. They might accept you with open arms and be so happy, depending on the way you present yourself to be. But that reaction may be like, what changed? What happened to you? Like, that reaction may not be the big embrace that you would hope for when you show yourself to be who you truly are. Especially if the way you presented yourself previously was one that was more so as a people pleaser or one that was more so catered to whoever was around you. And that's something I've realized more so about myself, my younger self. I once spoke about how I've realized the reason why I don't feel connected to a lot of people is because the person I presented myself to be to them was one that was catered to them. It was one that was created to fit the needs or what I perceived to be their needs from me, who I thought they wanted me to be for them. And that was my way of achieving friends or close relationships in my life. That was, I guess, my tactic as a child because to me changing myself and shape shifting into who these people wanted me to be was much more of a better result than sitting alone at lunch or having nobody to play with at recess. But now that I've become older and now that I'm in college, it's like those things aren't as blatant. Being lonely or alone isn't like, it doesn't feel as much as a spectacle that being lonely or alone when you were younger, when I was younger, felt to be. So it's like nobody's monitoring me if I'm eating alone or not. Nobody's monitoring me if I have a big friend group or I don't have a big friend group. And I think that's when it comes to play with your version of authenticity, whether it's good, bad, or in between. If it differs from the way that you presented yourself in a notable way, it will likely have impacts on the dynamics in your life. And I think that's just, I won't even say it's a sacrifice, but it's an exchange that you must be willing to accept because authenticity and being authentic, I feel like it has such like a pretty narrative to people. But unless your personality becomes one that people find more value in over your previous one, then it may not have that end result for you. And I don't even think that's something to necessarily be upset about or something to like harp on because just in the same way that you have the free will to present yourself to be whoever you want to be, other people in your life have the free will to decide whether or not this new person you decide to be, or however you choose to present yourself that was different than before, whether or not they want that person in their life or not, no matter how unfair or unjust it feels. Because when they met you, you seemed this way. They built that connection off of that person who seemed this way. And it's like this person is changing. And of course, wouldn't it be so amazing if everybody was just so receptive to the changes you make to your personality or how you choose to be in the world? Of course it would. But that's not the fact of the matter. Like, I think inherently people choose to move off of their self-interest, their best interest. So it's like, what's the exchange? Do you want to choose to move off of your own self-interest? The satisfaction it provides you in your daily life of expressing yourself truly, being authentic, and reaping the benefits of that, but also choosing to understand or accept the consequences of that too, and how that'll impact your relationships or certain aspects of your life. And also with authenticity, and when people are just like, be yourself, I think it's important to keep in mind that judgment is a part of life. Of course, judgment has such like a negative connotation, but it's like, as I said, people are entitled to their opinions. I don't think all actions people choose to take based off of their judgments are warranted, and I don't think all opinions or judgments are good at all. There are some awful judgments that people can have about you. But I think when choosing to be authentic, that's something that you have to accept. It's just something that you have to be like, okay, it's gonna be seen this way, or these people may have this narrative about me. Because for me personally in my life, when I realized the reason why I didn't feel connected to people or I didn't feel attached to people was because the way I was showing up wasn't my true self. It was costing me like any substantial amount of joy I could feel from having close interpersonal relationships because I wasn't feeling close to these people. I would just be like, "Oh, there's someone I know." Like, I truly wasn't feeling close to people. I wasn't feeling like, "Oh, I feel a substantial amount of joy when I speak to them." Like, I was always staying at this level of equilibrium, being like, "Okay, it's nice when I speak to them, or if I don't speak to them, it's whatever." I would just stay in a state of neutrality or indifference when I was interacting with people because the version of me I was presenting in the relationship, who they maybe were getting close to, wasn't truly me. Like, so it was like a one-sided relationship. And that's even what sparked this topic. I made a TikTok and I basically said that. And somebody asked me, then what does it look like when you are? Like, what does it look like when you truly are being yourself? And when I was thinking of that answer, I had to ask them the question back. Who would you be if you weren't afraid of being judged? And some people's answer to that question, because there's good people, there's bad people, there's neutral people. I think I'm inherently neutral, okay? I'm not saying I'm inherently good, I'm inherently like, okay, I'm inherently neutral. But like, it's a spectrum of all different personality traits in this world. So some people's variation of themselves, who would they be if they weren't afraid of judgment or if they weren't afraid of how other people would perceive them, may be bad, maybe what I consider bad. Because, of course, on the spectrum of good and bad, it's subjective. What I consider bad, other people may not consider bad. Other people may consider just. My main point is that authenticity comes at a cost. It's not all peace and love, kumbaya, rainbow, sunshine, happiness. And authenticity can be a lonely path, especially if you haven't chosen that path before, you know? You truly have to think, what am I getting myself into if I'm truly deciding I want to be myself? And to what cost? I also think it's important to realize not everybody is entitled to your authentic self. Because I think your authentic self is something special, you know? But if you really care about a relationship and stuff, sometimes showing your authentic self can make that relationship more meaningful or make that relationship feel more impactful. And that's more so the reason as to why I've decided I want to be more of my authentic self in hopes of forming connections in which I actually feel connected to them, in which I actually feel attached to them. Because for so long, as I've mentioned, I've stayed in that state of neutrality. I've stayed in that state of, okay, I can objectively recognize this person is nice to me. This person, I have good moments with this person, but maybe I don't feel connected to this person. But to me, I want much more than that. I don't want to solely just feel like, okay, I objectively recognize you are a good friend, but I don't feel connected to you. Those don't satisfy my soul, okay? They don't keep me going in life. Like, I don't live for those surface level friendships. I don't live for acquaintanceships, okay? I live for those close relationships that make me feel truly happy, which is why I've come to this conclusion and I've thought so hard about it, honestly. Weigh the pros and cons. Who are you willing to lose? What are you willing to lose as a result of choosing to be your true self? And if you're truly okay with that, then go ahead. If you decide the benefits of choosing to be your true self outweigh the negatives of choosing to be your true self, I think your decision has been made.